today on the Prosperity Nation podcast.
It's just such a disconnect on money. And that's why there's a human, and that human may not understand finances, but that human still has goals that are meaningful and important that they're trying to do. And if we can get money going directly into their goals with them, like that's what makes our job super fun. Welcome to the Prosperity Nation podcast, the show where we inspire you to live a life you love without money holding you back. I'm Angie Grainger, and this is my co-host, Elise Eropkin.
Hello.
Hey, Elise.
Hey.
Always fun to have a show with you here today. And we're partners in our CPA-led wealth management firm, kind of a unique boutique kind of way of doing money here. What have we got on the topic for today, Elise?
Today we're actually going to talk about the human side of wealth management.
The human side of wealth management and the human side of wealth. Wow, I wonder what that is. Let's see. I'm very curious how this is going to go. Mm-hmm. Well, I know that it's going to tie into the point that all we really care about is prosperity. We want everybody to know how to create prosperity. And prosperity means being able to flourish as a person as well as financially. So, the human side of wealth makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, you would think duh. Duh, obviously. But it's really funny how not obvious it is when it actually happens in the real world, So...
Yeah, I think about, when I hear the words like the human side of wealth or the human side of wealth management, right? That it sounds so weird, but yet it's because it's so usually so technical about we're wealth managers and we're financial advisors and we're going to show you all these pie charts and talk about the stock market and all of these things that do go on behind the scenes, but how many people really understand that stuff? And not that we're advocates for people being smart about money for sure, but what really matters about money? That's kind of where we go with it, I think.
Yeah, I think people get impressed by the presentations and the pictures. It's almost like, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for other people, but people in certain professions feel like they have to use the big words and in order to show their intelligence over a subject, but it's almost like I'm just going to talk in a bunch of things that you have no idea what I'm saying, so I look and sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about to impress you, when in reality it just confuses people.
Yeah. And you know what? It confuses me too.
Me too.
It's hard stuff.
Especially when they're not even using the terms correctly. And you're like, now you just look like an idiot when you actually do know what they're saying.
Yeah, well, there's that too. And that's, I've always had that approach to where it's really talking to the person. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the whole point here is behind all the money and behind all the investments or insurance, annuities, taxes, accounting, behind all of that, there's a person. And that person is trying to do something in life, and that's where we talk about without money holding you back. But I also talk about just the idea of, look, what does it matter with what's going on with your money and all these complexities in finances if you can't actually get to where you can live a life you love?
That's true.
So it's like, well, what is that? And where are you today? And it's been interesting because this week I've had several conversations with different people about what is our family wealth management. We call our products family wealth management, but really a lot of it is financial planning. And nowadays it's a lot of money coaching. Yeah. It's just saying, hey, wealth management to you or financial planning to you may mean a debt restructuring or a credit card pay down plan. And it's like you have to meet the person where they are with finances. You can't overspeak them,
Well, yeah, that and I think it goes back to what you always say, when people come to us and they're just like, well, what do I do with my money? Again, what do you always say? For what?
For what?
What is it for? And so just like you said, it's not a one size fits all thing. Mm-hmm. it depends on the person. Like we could have a great strategy that works for one person that would be horrible for another because they're in a totally different situation. And it's like even what they teach you, in some of the investment courses and getting your advisor license, you have to figure out what the person wants. It's not a one size fits all thing. Like one stock might be great for one person, but not for the other.
Right.
So I think that's key in knowing where they're at, and that includes like where they want to go.
Or that includes their level of skill or knowledge about what you're talking about, because they are ultimately responsible, for their investments. And, we don't advocate for people to just say, here, do whatever you think is right. It's like, no, you need to understand your own finances. And if it's too complex for you, then let's find a way to simplify it because...
It just reminds me, it reminds me of, the clients that we get with their business accounting that ask what is a write-off.
Right, yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know. Was it a write-off for your business or wasn't it? It's kind of like the same thing. It's like they need to be able to make the choice or the decision or determine whether it's a right investment for them or, in my example, the right write-off for their business.
Right, exactly.
It's not up to me to decide like what they should do with their money. So obviously they have to understand what they're doing with it or what they're choosing.
Or what they want to do with it. Exactly.
Right.
Well, money is a tool. And if you think about a hammer, right? A hammer is sitting on the bench. It's a hammer. It's not going to get up and start building a house. Like you have to know that you want to build a house and you need some wood and you need some nails. And then you have to go pick that hammer up and go hammer that nail in. And that's the same with your money and your investments. It's not going to just grow you wealth or it's not going to just make you happy. You have to know how to use it into the things that will actually make you happy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm talking to a wall about this stuff.
Well, maybe you are, but...
Maybe. Thanks, Elise.
Just
I'm
like I
listening,
talk
Angie.
to
Don't worry.
myself.
I'm with you.
Sean, save me.
Well, I have a story.
Oh, yeah.
If you want me to jump in with a story.
Yeah, tell us.
Okay, so when you said building a house, we just built a house.
Yeah, you did.
So my wife, Katie, and I built a house a couple years ago. We started it. And so we were looking at our options. We found some land that we wanted to build on. We're in Australia, so there's land everywhere. I know some places in the world that is not the case.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of land here. We found some land, and coming to the human side of wealth, the advisors that we worked with who cared about what we wanted and were trying to find a way to make it work to build the life that we wanted to build versus those who came to us, with spreadsheets and with floundering around between all the different banking applications to whatever. It was night and day. And day. I remember when we came in to finalize our mortgage, everything was all looking good. We were coming in to just make the final payments and get it all started. Our preferred advisor was not available on that day. So it was another person who will remain nameless who came in and she seemed all over the place. Like she was kind of going between her banking app over here and her app over here and her database over here. And then she's like, okay, I've done all the numbers and you need to pay us now an extra, I'll keep it blank, but it was like an extra boom.
Well, we can make up a number. Let's just say 20 grand.
20 grand.
Yeah.
And we've already done all our calculations to make everything kind of work for this.
Yeah.
And then this was like an unexpected 20 grand on top of what we thought. And we're like, it was like that sinking feeling inside.
Yep.
And honestly, it was because she was just so all over the place, not really paying much attention, that she just made an error. And she was like, oh, whoops, no, sorry, that was wrong.
My bad.
And we're like, oh my gosh. And she had no awareness of the fact that we just thought our dream was just crashing in front of us.
Yeah.
It's the human side of wealth that makes all the difference.
That is such a great story, and it's so funny because honestly, why do things get complex for someone like that or for anyone really is because you don't understand the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Right.
When you don't understand the fundamentals, you start floundering around in the complexities. But there's only 4 parts to money. It's so simple. but yet we make it so complex. And then, you get stuck in figuring out all these complexities, and you forget that you're sitting in front of a person that worked really hard to get to where they are today. And maybe in many cases, that's not where they want to be. And so do you make them feel bad, shocked, crush their dreams, or just not cared about because you're so focused on the spreadsheets and the fancy charts and what you should have been doing? Or do you sit and be heart to heart with that person and help them gain that understanding and get reconnected back to that dream again? That's the human side of wealth.
That's true. That never really happens. It's just like, or they'll do it like partially. I don't know. I think in my experience, it's like, well, you get kind of discouraged. You know, you're like, well, I want to have a certain amount of money by the time I retire. And then when they put the numbers together with their fancy calculations, it's like, okay, well, you need to save $8,000 a month now in order to have, and you're like,
what's the point?
Wait, that's like barely how.
Or my advisor told me the first time I went to a financial planning, well, go save up a couple $100,000 and then I'll tell you how to invest. I'm like, well, that's why I came to you. How am I going to do that?
If I had a few $100,000 right now, I just hand it to you.
Right. My favorite, I'll tell you, my favorite was I was talking to a family member. I'll keep it anonymous also. But he was like, yeah, when I was in my 20s, they're like showing me all these spreadsheets. It's like, well, if you contribute into your retirement account, by the time you're 50, you're going to be a millionaire. And he's like, where's all my millions? And he's like 50 and he's like, I got no money. It's like.
What's sad too is like, obviously you have to count inflation. So even if you're a millionaire in 30 years from now, it's still, now it's like nothing. It's like,
nowadays.
Now, but it is interesting because then, it's like, okay, fine, I need to save $8,000 whatever a month, but now you're like defeated because you're like, how do I get that? Like I'm only making, I don't know, again, I'm going to make up a number. If you're only making $10,000 or $15,000 a month, how are you going to save half of your income? But they don't actually take the time to be like, okay, well, you know what, let's work this through. Like, let's see how we can actually make that number feasible for you with what you have going on, or what else do you have that we can pull the resources together. And you don't get that level of like coaching. I don't want to call it coaching, but time or attention.
It's meeting the person where they are,
right,
and really validating and helping them feel empowered and feel good about it, even though it's not where they want to be. Because honestly, look at all of us, and Americans anyway. Maybe Australians over there, you guys got your act together better than us. But here, we're overspending.
I don't know about that, Angie.
I don't know about that.
I'm going to agree with Sean on this. Sorry,
we're not savers. Like these, from baby boomer down are not savers. We're not saver generations. And so we don't have those skills, those desires. And so, we're not where we thought we should be at this point in our lives. It just doesn't happen that way anymore. And so do you make yourself feel bad about that? Do you, like give your client that look like, where have you been all your life? What have you been doing with all your money?
Why weren't you saving since you're in kindergarten? I mean, come on.
Right. And you say, how do you build a plan now? And one of my financial planning clients, one time I was working with her, and she actually had more financial freedom than most people. And she was making $25,000 a year because she planned her life in advance so that her house was paid off by the time that she retired. And that's the problem with when you keep refinancing your house. By the way, every time you refinance, you're paying the interest again. And you're extending it out another 10 years or whatever. It's like, it's really not cost effective to get ahead that way. But she paid her house off by the time that she was retired. And then on her Social Security income, she had just extra money. Like it was a comfortable life to live on $25,000. That's $2,000 a month, basically, with no rent or house payment. It doesn't work for us nowadays if we're paying $5,000, $6,000 a month in rent or house payments. How are we going to sustain that when we're on Social Security? That's not even going to be possible. Yeah. So you do have to think about that. But if you're already 50 and you're thinking about buying a house and you're going to be paying those payments till you're 80 something, that's a different story. So that's where that maintenance button comes in. Beep! I want a maintenance button. I always thought about this. You go to buy a house, even when you're young. Let's say you're 30 or 40 and you go to buy a house. Even if you got it all paid off, well, by the time that you retire and you now have flat income, now you need a new roof. You need all new appliances. The foundation's crumbling. And now you've got this house that you've been in for 20 or 30 years that now has big maintenance costs at a time when you don't have the income anymore.
That's true. Well, I think it's, the whole planning and wealth management, I think, kind of to your point, it's all great. And it looks fancy, but it doesn't address the person that's actually sitting there. Because I think a lot of it is these nice fancy systems and pie charts. Like you love riffing on those pie charts. I want to know what the pie charts did to you someday. But but at the same time, like you have to look at what the person is confronting or what they're dealing with in front of you. Because even if they have disposable income that can support paying a certain amount a month towards their savings, what else are they actually, like what are their other goals they're trying to accomplish right now? Because it might not be that they have all this free money just to go to a savings account. They might have, like you said, the new roof on the house, some type of repairs. Maybe they're having a baby, that they are expecting needing that extra money to pay for a new child expenses, or who knows. But that's why you can't just kind of have those plug and play, like, here you go. Here's your plan.
It's so true. And, people want a person to talk to.
Yeah.
I think that's really why we care so much, because we care about the person. Mm-hmm. That's why we spend so much time finding money, cleaning up messes, mistakes, and getting those missed opportunities, but also not just in their taxes and accounting, but in their investments, in their planning, in their insurances, and their annuities. Like, there's fees in there. There's costs in there. It may not be the right product for them anymore. It may not be the right savings vehicle anymore. For example, we're working with a client that's going through the transition out of a business and into, the next phase of his life. And wow, we have the opportunity to secure income for him for the rest of his life and his spouse's with a small investment now that may change like what the next year will look like. But if he does that, then he is worry-free for the rest of their both lives combined for a very small, stretch year. And I was like, wow, this would make a huge difference in their lives. Why? Because that was what they were trying to accomplish. Not because I want that for them, but that's what they wanted for them.
Yeah, you know what? I just had an interesting thought, and I don't really know if this is like part of the topic, but okay, I know we're doing that stuff for that client you just mentioned, and it just kind of, okay, so you have this whole plan on what you're doing for him, right? But you got those people who are advisor jumpers.
Advisor jumpers.
I just made that up.
Yeah, it's a great term. Advisor jumper.
Advisor jumpers. But you know what I'm talking about. The people who they get a new CPA every year. They get a new financial advisor every year, whatever. But what's very interesting, and I thought of, is like, that's not very, and I'm not even saying this to promote us and staying and whatever, but if you advisor jump, you can never actually stay with someone long enough to really carry through that plan. So another advisor who maybe gets the statements or the policies and the documents of what someone else had created, not knowing the full story as to why it was created, might think it's a horrible investment. Yeah. And so, again, it kind of goes back into the human side of it, but also, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you can't advisor jump, because then it might, like, change everything. You might end up paying more, like, getting out of a policy that was actually better for you because the first advisor was addressing the human side, but the second one doesn't know the human side, and so then you change it,
Yeah, I totally get it. I think it works usually the other way around. People get stuck with an advisor because they've been with them for a very long time, and they're afraid to let them, hurt their feelings, and so they don't. But also, they don't know if they're doing a good job for them or not. And either scenario, the problem really is that the individual person is trying to be the financial advisor over all their advisors. And they're not trained, they didn't go to school for taxes and accounting and insurance, investments, retirement planning, all that stuff. But they've put themselves in that place because they don't have an advisor who actually has those cross-discipline trainings to very well oversee the whole picture and help them make those choices. That's what everybody loves about what we do. It's all in one place, because then we know when we're talking about insurance or investments or taxes or accounting, that we know the effects it has on insurance, taxes, accounting, cash flow, retirement. Like, we understand because we're trying to see it from the entire picture point of view. And that's that human side of like, what do you want money to do for you? And then let's use all of these different elements.
Yeah.
Getting them working together toward that thing that you're trying to do.
Yeah, I actually had a call with someone earlier today too, and we were talking about accounting and the business and how a lot of our clients are business owners, and what they said to me is like, yeah, we could set goals with your clients for how much net income for their business, and then really help work with them on that. I'm like, yes, that's great, but why? Kind of like we always say, why do they want that much money for their business? Like, we take it a step further and figure out what the client wants personally, what goals do they want to accomplish for that year, and then we figure out how to get there. Right. So if they want, $1 million to fund their goals for this year, then we say, okay, great. Well, if you can get your business revenue up to blah, then you can have that, or if you can, all these other things. But so I don't know. It was really interesting how a lot of people still are so stuck on like just the business goals, and let's set goals for the business instead of like, let's actually address what the individual wants and then see what we can get out of the business.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a good point, because there's a person that wants goals achieved. Yeah. And often, because we don't take time to think about what we want money to do for us, we don't even know what those are. So then we just throw numbers out of what we think the business can do. And when we push on that, we're like, wait a minute, you just gave us a bunch of grandiose goals that you're not going to be able, you're making $200,000 a year and you just gave us $4 million of the goals to achieve in 1 year. Come on. Right? Like, come on. Let's not be grandiose about this. But that's the disconnect that's there. There's just such a disconnect on money. And that's why there's a human, then that human may not understand finances, but that human still has goals that are meaningful and important that they're trying to do. And if we can debug that and get money going directly into their goals with them, like, that's what makes our job super fun. That's the person behind it. It's like, because we want to see that person come to life. If that person quits on their dreams, they get unhappy and then they start shrinking. And we've seen that even with our clients in some cases. Like, they're defeated and they start shrinking. And then, what do? They start cutting services. But when they pour the fuel onto those inspired ideas and those goals, and they start making them come true, and their money's going in the right direction, the person comes alive. Oh yeah, the person comes alive, and that's what's fun to participate in.
Oh yeah, and they're excited.
So for everyone at home, Angie, what would you say people could look for when they're speaking with an advisor and they don't know much about them yet? What can they look for that's a good sign that this is an advisor that understands the human side of wealth?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sean. Let me ask you, like,
what would make you
what
think
would
that?
it work for
I'm the
you?
producer. I get to ask the questions.
No, I think, are they showing you a bunch of spreadsheets and, like illustrations and trying to sell you something? Or are they really taking the time to listen to exactly what you want and call you out on it, and like really confront with you and say, yeah, I hear that's what you want, but I'm not going to sell you that thing or do that thing because I don't know that that's really going to help you get there. So let's take some more time and really get to know you and what you're trying to accomplish with money. I think that's the first sign.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's also very important to look at who is that advisor. Who are they? So if you imagine like a boardroom table, and if there were people sitting all around the table, and one person was an expert in insurance, and one was an expert in investments, and one was taxes, and one was accounting, one was financial planning. What did I miss? Overall wealth management, estate planning, tax planning, tax strategy. Like, you had all these people sitting around the table, and you're at the head of the table. And you have somebody saying, okay, how do you get this whole team to align all their ideas and thoughts toward the things you're trying to achieve? Then that's a very different conversation with somebody who can do that versus if there was only one person at that table and all they had was a hammer. And they're telling you, use the hammer to solve all those problems.
But then the next person you meet with is telling you the screwdriver.
It's kind of like going
And
to
then
get
the
your car
next
fixed.
person, it's like going, it's
You go to get your oil change
Yeah.
at the tire shop, and next thing you know, you need new tires, right?
you want the one person that has all of the tools that can do all of it, not each individual
That's right.
tool separately.
Yeah, that's right. So they've got to talk about you as a person and what you're trying to accomplish with money. What do you want money to do for you? And they've got to be able to understand it from that multidisciplinary position so that you don't end up getting into strategies that aren't going to be the right fit for you or not going to be the most efficient way. I should put it that way. The most efficient way for you to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish as a human. Lots to think about. I'm so passionate about this because, I've failed with money, ups and downs. And, so many times in my life, I actually mapped this out because I diagrammed this one time. Of course, I diagram everything.
Yeah.
So I mapped out.
But it's not a pie chart.
No,
So
it was like
we don't do pie
staircases.
charts.
Oh my God, I'm going to pull up a pie chart.
If you ever make-
I'm going to get pie in my...
I've seen Angie make some pie charts.
If you ever make a pie chart again, I'm just going to say, Angie, we don't do pie charts, remember?
I'm going to get
She
pie in
does.
my face.
I know she does. That would be fun. Anyway.
But I did this mapping out of all the different points in my life, kind of like a timeline, where I didn't do the thing I knew I should have done because I let money hold me back.
That's rough.
And I should save that for another episode because I can tell you lots of points in my life, and I'm sure you have some, and it's a whole topic in and of itself that is saying, where in your life did you make a left turn instead of a right turn because you were afraid you didn't have enough money to do it or it was going to affect you financially in some way rather than doing what was really the human part that you're trying to do?
Yeah. I'm interested.
So that's where my passion comes from. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that on our next episode. For now, hey, we do want to hear from you. So we do want to hear how is it like, what is it like for you, I should say, from a human side? What's it like dealing with money, dealing with advisors? Hey, you can come rip on us as advisors too. We don't mind. We want to get the truth out there because advisors should be helping you and you should feel good about that. You should understand what you're doing and you should see results. So we want to hear your stories.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to hear them. So please go ahead and like and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. And then you can go ahead and comment, share your stories that way. You can also email us at stories@prosperitynation.com.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing from you. Join us. Join the journey with us. Let's all become prosperants or ones who prosper. That doesn't work.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us today. Like and subscribe to videos from us on YouTube. Follow us online for the latest episodes, updates, and more. And invite others to join us at prosperitynation.com. That's it for now. We'll see you next time on the Prosperity Nation podcast.